In Janesville, Wisconsin, second-generation soybean farmer Doug Rebout runs GPS-guided tractors across 4,000 acres. He can plant a week's worth of soybeans in just days. The hard part used to be drought, pests, or gas prices. These days, it's Washington. Since the first trade war kicked off in 2018, soybean prices have been whiplashed by tariffs, collapsing nearly 50% at one point. By 2025, Doug isn't just fighting the weather. He's fighting politicians over 800 miles away who decide, with the flick of a pen, whether his crop pays the bills or gathers dust. You're watching Redneckonomics right here on the Roughcut Media Network. I'm Lee Calvin. Today we're talking about a word that gets tossed around like a patriotic football. Tariffs. Anyone who isn't living under a rock is probably sick of hearing about tariffs by now, but there seems to be a lot of confusion as to how tariffs actually affect the American consumer or the working class. In fact, it was this widespread disinformation I kept hearing about tariffs that were the catalyst to Roughcut Media Network. We all know the sales pitch. Get tough on China. Reshore manufacturing. Bring the jobs back. Make America strong again. But peel back the slogans and you'll see the reality. Tariffs don't hammer foreign countries first, or at all. They hit us, working Americans, right in the wallet. At the grocery store, at the hardware store, in smaller paychecks, in canceled overtime, and in family farms being auctioned off because the math doesn't add up. Politicians sell tariffs as a cure, but for the working class, they feel more like a poisoned IV drip. So today, we're cutting through the noise, how tariffs really work, who they really help, and why they keep getting shoved down our throats even when the numbers scream otherwise. This ain't just trade policy. This is your shopping cart, your job, your future. So grab a coffee or a whiskey, because we're about to dive into the tariff trap. So what exactly is a tariff? Well, according to the Oxford Languages Dictionary, a tariff is, and I quote, a tax. That's right, the second word in the definition is tax. A tariff is a tax or duty to be paid on a particular class of imports or exports. And just like sales tax, you can't dodge it. You pay it upon receipt. In 2025, the U.S. effective tariff rate, which is basically the average tariff rate on all goods imported into the U.S., jumped from under 3% a few years ago to nearly 18.6% today. Steel and aluminum imports now face tariffs up to 50%, autos up to 25%, and consumer goods like clothing and electronics are anywhere from 20 to 40%. So what does that mean for regular folks? Prices across the board going up. Tariffs this year alone are estimated to raise consumer costs about 1.8%. For the average household, that's an extra $2,400 in 2025. Apparel and footwear prices spiked at nearly 40%, while motor vehicles are up 12.4%. Altogether, tariffs were projected to cut 0.5 percentage points off of GDP growth in both 2025 and 2026 and eliminate 505,000 jobs by the end of the year, according to the Yale Budget Lab. So when a senator says, buy American, remember this isn't going to save you money. When cheaper imports suddenly cost more, American companies tend to raise prices anyways. And you're the one covering the tab. Tariffs don't hit China first. They hit U.S. importers, and importers pass it on to consumers. It's like Walmart putting a toll booth at every self-checkout. Every pack of screws, every bottle of laundry detergent, every case of beer, the toll is due. And it isn't Beijing paying for it, it's you. Let's illustrate this with some quick math. Let's say I own a pen company, and I need to import 1,000 pens at $1 each. Add $300 for shipping costs, and my markup is 50%. That means I sell my pens to a retailer for $1.95. Then they mark it up, say another 50%, and sell it to you at $2.92 each. Now, let's look at that pricing with a tariff attached. I pay $1,000 and a 145% Chinese tariff, which was a real number being discussed on real television. That adds $1,450. Add in $300 shipping, and we're looking at an out-of-pocket cost of $27.50 or $2.75 per pen. Add my 50% markup, and now I wholesale the pen for $4.12. The retailer marks it up 50%, and now that $2.92 pen costs the consumer $6.18. And I can't eat that cost. I have to pass it on. If I was selling pens for $1.95 that I paid $2.75 for, Well, I'm sure you can see why I'm now out of business. Let's look at appliances. According to the Federal Reserve, tariffs on washers and dryers raised prices nearly 12%, an extra $86 per washer multiplied by millions of households. The kicker? That cost per job saved at Whirlpool came in at about $815,000. That's $815,000 per job. Money that could have paid for 11 years of wages for an average Whirlpool worker. Which, by the way, if Whirlpool's hiring, that doesn't sound too bad. By 2025, the story repeats. Cars cost more, groceries cost more, tools cost more, and tariffs fall hardest on the working poor. A Yale Budget Lab analysis shows the bottom 10% of earners shoulder more than 3 times the relative burden compared to the wealthiest Americans. So when politicians claim tariffs punish China, remember, the U.S. consumer is footing that bill, and we never even get a thank you note. Tariffs don't just bleed wallets, they shred livelihoods. Farmers know it best. According to EconoFact, in 2017, U.S. farmers shipped $12.2 billion worth of soybeans to China. After retaliatory tariffs, those exports collapsed by 75% to $3.1 billion. Today, it's zero. Who filled the gap? Brazil and now Argentina. Now shipping over 80% of China's soybeans, raking in $33 billion in sales. Roll tape.
Severe struggles are hitting soybean farmers as the harvest season gets underway.
Yeah, they've lost billions of dollars in sales already this year, and there's no end in sight for those losses at this point. Fox 9's Corn Hoggard looks at how this is impacting local farmers.
Soybeans and corn grow across 4,500 acres of Faribault County, belonging to Darren Johnson's family since the early 1900s.
We've been around for quite some time.
But the landscape keeps changing around this fourth-generation farmer. Farm bankruptcies are up 95% since 2022. The cost of doing business is up, but sales prices are going down.
And those numbers don't look good and are not improving, particularly because of the soybeans and the trade war that continues to put pressure on those markets.
The level of urgency is especially high right now for Minnesota soybean farmers. Harvest season is now, and this crop is ready to go. But trade wars are giving farmers a tough situation to swallow. They're right in the bullseye for tariff retaliation, and their biggest export market is now a black hole.
Nothing's moving. Nothing's moving.
China usually buys $12 to $13 billion worth of American soybeans every year, but they haven't bought any in months. Instead, they're importing for the first time from Argentina and expanding long-term contracts with Brazilian farmers.
It's going to be tough to get some of that business back that we're losing. Retaliatory tariffs has caused us to be less competitive in the global marketplace.
In the short term, most soybean farmers will harvest their crops and either sell them at a loss or pay to store them, or a little of both. But they can only last so long with income at or near zero. And it's not just soybeans. China has curtailed its imports of American corn, wheat, and sorghum.
There has been times like this in the past, and we've gotten through it, and I know we will again.
And in Montana, a $300 million beef deal died overnight when China slapped U.S. beef with tariffs. No plan B, just ranchers left holding the bag. And in manufacturing, a Federal Reserve study found that steel and aluminum tariffs alone killed about 75,000 downstream jobs, far more than were ever saved in steel production. Added up, and the U.S.-China trade war cost the economy $245,000 in just the first 2 years, according to Oxford Economics. By 2025, that damage continues. Rising costs squeeze small shops, tool and die shops shut down, contracts vanish, and families in Ohio, Missouri, and Wisconsin are left wondering how pro-worker policies turned into pink slips. Let's be honest, tariffs aren't about fairness. They're about power. Lobbyists pushed for them, corporations profited off of them, and the working people paid for them. Steel and aluminum lobbies spent millions greasing the wheels in Washington to get their tariffs. They got their sugar rush profits, then U.S. Steel shut down plants and shipped jobs overseas anyway. Whirlpool begged for tariffs on washers, raised prices once they got them, then shifted jobs to Mexico, according to Bloomberg. Made in America is more like paid by America. Even the bailout money didn't trickle down. According to an environmental working group analysis, the $28 billion bailout mostly padded the top 1% of agribusinesses. Meanwhile, small family farms held bake sales just to cover the mortgage. And globally, our loss was their gain. Brazilian soybeans, Canadian lumber, Vietnamese textiles, foreign exporters feasted while American workers got crumbs. So who really won? Lobbyists, shareholders, politicians who get to cosplay as tough guys on TV. Who lost? The rancher in Montana, the steel worker in Ohio, the single mom replacing a washing machine. Basically, every member of blue-collar society. So, what would trade policy look like if it actually helped workers? First, stop taxing the American people in the name of saving them. You don't defend jobs by squeezing consumers. You defend them by fixing the rules of the game. Trade deals with labor teeth. Number one, make labor rights part of every trade agreement. No child labor, no union busting, no sweatshops if you want access to U.S. markets. Number two, reshore jobs the right way. Instead of punishing importers, incentivize domestic production. Think the CHIPS Act, but for every sector. Number three, close the loopholes. Stop letting companies dodge tariffs through shell games. Audit trade flows, penalize tax havens, and slap extra taxes on firms that offshore jobs while pocketing U.S. subsidies. Number four, finally, put workers at the table. Trade policy usually gets written by corporate lawyers. Add unions, small businesses, and consumer advocates in the room, and make deals public before they're signed. Trade doesn't have to be a weapon. It can be a tool to build dignity, security, and real opportunity. So next time you're standing in Lowe's wondering why screws cost $8 or why your neighbor just lost his farm, remember it wasn't some invisible hand of the market. It was tariffs, sold as patriotic, delivered as punishment. They didn't bring jobs back. They didn't punish the powerful. They punished you. But if bad policy can wreck wallets this fast, then good policy can rebuild them just as quick. That's why Roughcut Media Network is here, to cut through the noise, tell the truth, and put the mic back in the hands of the working class. If this hits home, please share it, because chances are someone you know has been paying the tariff tab without even realizing it. And click the subscribe button because we've got another episode of Redneckonomics coming out soon. It's called The Credit Con, exposing how the credit score racket keeps folks trapped in debt and locked out of opportunity. Until then, keep your boots muddy and your mind sharp. I'm Lee Calvin, and you're watching Redneckonomics right here on the Roughcut Media Network. We'll see you next time.